From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast. It's great to be with all y'all this morning, Thursday, December 12th, 2024. A packed show for all y'all today, so buckle up, get in your seats. It's great to be back in the studio because guess what I have with me? A double espresso. That's right. A beautiful, perfect creation of grinded and coffee beans in just a perfect mixture. Join me for a coffee cup cheers this morning. I missed it all week long. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. So good. So good. All right. We have a lot to talk about on this morning's show, and I mean a lot, because here's the deal. A new national defense budget has gone through. We're going to catch up on some of the cyber attacks, including a new one that's impacting a whole lot of people that you don't want to have unhappy. We'll kick that off here in just a minute, as well as some Patch Tuesday makeup stuff that didn't make it into our Patch Tuesday show, and some spyware. That's right. All of that today. Buckle up, subscribe, follow, share, like, and comment. Here we go. Where did that go? There it is. Let's talk about Krispy Kreme disappointing many law enforcement officers across the country after confirming a cyber attack that did lead to operational disruptions within the company, including their online ordering system. Now, at this point, this appears to be a ransomware attack, although that has not been confirmed yet. But the Krispy Kreme statement does say that they're working through certain operational disruptions due to a cybersecurity incident, including their online ordering in several parts of the U.S. The company did file an 8K with the SEC on November 29th. So the company, along with its external cybersecurity experts, continue to work on this. The multinational company said the incident is reasonably likely to have material impact on the company's business operations until recovery efforts are completed. Krispy Kreme operates in 30 countries with a huge network of donut and coffee shops, as well as e-commerce and delivery. So the disappointed faces that couldn't get their Krispy Kreme this morning are there. A few days ago, we talked about the Romanian Electra Group cyber attack. We now know the ransomware is actually driven by Lynx ransomware group, who published this on their leak site. Electra warned investors on Monday it was investigating the ransomware attack in collaboration with the national cybersecurity authorities in Romania. The company added that their SCADA and other critical systems were isolated and unaffected by the attack. And again, we said that here on the show, the separation between IT and OT environments is significant. And when companies in the energy or oil and gas or any sector where, they rely heavily on OT and OT is segregated, it rarely impacts OT. Not to say that it doesn't, but ransomware won't impact OT. Disruptions will. Right. So disruptions will be OT related in terms of, power supply or oil and gas flow, etc. Most of the time, that's not the case here. So based on all available data, according to the DNSC, the critical power systems, supply systems have not been affected and are operational. They're currently probably investigating this. Lynx ransomware has been active since at least July of this year. They've added 78 victims to their clear web data leak site since August. According to CIS, the list claims victims include multiple U.S. facilities, over 20 entities from energy, oil, and gas sectors between July and November. Bleeping Computer confirmed in August that Linux ransomware and recent INC encryptors were mostly using the same base string analysis, showing similarities. And again, the decentralized nature of ransomware makes it seem like these groups are the same group, but they're not. So there'll be similarities because of the affiliate model that's really part of the ransomware as a service model. And that affiliate model will say initial access is coming from the same affiliate. Here it seems to be like the malware and the encryption might be the same affiliate, just different connections. They're just renaming a line of code. Essentially, one to be INC and another one to be Lynx. But they're the same affiliates, and affiliates will double and triple and quadruple dip in order to make as much money as they possibly can, where they're getting different payouts from different groups based on target, contribution, etc. But we know based on some captured affiliates that, in some cases it could be 10%, in other cases it could be 50, 60% of whatever they get. So just really does depend. And that's been the case here, at least for Lynx and our friends over in Romania experiencing this specific cyber breach. Romania's intelligence services also declassified, and they're still reeling, by the way, from their election infrastructure. So back-to-back type of, I don't want to say cyber attacks, but from November 19th to the 25th, their election day, they had 85,000 cyber attacks in the country. Talked about that early on this week in on our Monday morning episode. So go check it out. Excuse me. A lot of stuff going on there. We're going to move to the U.S. defense bill here. All right. So why are we talking about the U.S. defense bill on a cybersecurity news show? Because there's a lot to do with that. Because at the end of the day, we have a weird fascination in cybersecurity. Our fascination is with government. A lot of us do come from a government background, whether it be military or federal agencies that go into the cybersecurity realm. And the cybersecurity realm is kind of like the new kind of, James Bond, if you go back to, back in the day type of deal, right? There's a fascination. There's always stories people love to hear and so forth about it. However, as an industry, because of our, excuse me, coughing here this morning, because of the issues with government, I'm going to take another sip of espresso here. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. Clear my throat, soften it up with some warm espresso. All right. So because of our fascination with government, because we're looking for government to take a lead, because cybersecurity is a team sport, and it does require, whether we like it or not, it does require a significant private-public partnership, and we yearn for that partnership because of the resources that we need that primarily government would have. So this new 1,800-page bill, the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, is being reviewed by the House and Senate. It'll get passed at some point and make it to, excuse me, President Biden's desk. All in all, it authorizes $895 billion worth of national security spending, primarily within the Department of Defense, an amount more than Poland's entire GDP. So the annual defense package does allocate $143.8 billion for science and technology research, funding, including the federal's communication efforts to subsidize, excuse me, the removal of Chinese equipment. We're going to get to that here in just a second. So it would also establish 2 pilot programs within DoD for the use of AI, including a 5-year initiative to develop security-focused biotechnological applications and another to create AI-driven software for defense manufacturing facilities. So all of that's coming in. Obviously, they're prioritizing technology, innovation, modernization. By the way, we've given all of our old weapons to Ukraine, so we got to build new weapons. By the way, that was something that, as they were financing the war in the Ukraine, it was something that I caught Senator McConnell, Mitch McConnell, say. He was like, "Yeah, we're selling Ukraine is all of our old weapons, and now we're going to have to replenish them with newer, more modern weapons, which we couldn't do because we had stockpiles of old weapons." And people were like, "Well, we have these old weapons. Why aren't we using them?" They gave them all to the Ukraine. So that's what's happening there. But we'll get to that, because here's the deal with all of this now, right? So $895 billion going to the defense industry. China obviously going after telcos. Salt Typhoon extremely successful in an attack that's really, once it becomes public, right now all the briefings are classified. Investigation is ongoing. It's a sensitive spot too, by the way. Geopolitically speaking, you want to be very careful of how you do it. Excuse me. Again, you want to be very careful of how you do this, simply because of what the consequences are when you go after China. China's economy has zero growth. I mean, they're in a horrible, horrible situation. If you push their back further against the door, they may have nothing against the wall. They may have nothing else to lose. And excuse me. And in doing so, that could lead to some potential action against Taiwan by China, which could kick off a global conflict and a supply chain problem around technology that we have not seen, which will likely trigger a massive conflict during a transitional period in administrations in the U.S. So there are some considerations being done here from the transition team, from a national security perspective, and also from a geopolitical perspective, as to what needs to be done here. China's been infiltrating networks all over the place, right? So there's nothing new. Excuse me. So there's that. Now, there's $3 billion in the $895 billion package that's being folded to the FCC for a rip and replace to get rid of all the Huawei and ZTE equipment for 126 carriers to do that. So here's the deal. Yesterday on the show, I talked about how the FCC had rules in the books around securing the telcos from 1994 that they never enforced. So their failure to enforce these rules, which could have helped prevent the scope of maybe not prevent the attack, but maybe the scope of the attack, right? The sophistication of the attack. Now they're taking $3.08 billion to reimburse 126 carriers for eliminating the use of Chinese tech, which for years we've all been saying you got to rip that stuff out. China's malicious, China's bad, but instead you allowed these telcos. The FCC has, and this has nothing to do with current chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel. She's been in that role for a very short period of time. Going back 4 or 5 administrations, you can go back 1994. President in 1994 was Bill Clinton. So from the Clinton administration through Bush's 8 years, through Obama's 8 years, through the first term of Trump, and now the 4 years of Biden, no one's thought about this. No one's put a stop to it. And now taxpayers got to front the bill because these federal agencies aren't doing what they need to do. And so now these telcos are going to government and saying, well, we'd love to replace it, but we spent all this money. So we spend the money to buy from China. We took the jobs from America to create this to China. The government did all of that. And then the taxpayers fronting the bill because they couldn't see the writing on the wall where the writing on the wall needed to be. Sorry for being brutally honest, but you got to call a spade, and a spade is what it is. This is an absolute disgrace for these United States. Government does have to change, and these federal agencies have to get out of this stuff and do what's best for America and for the American public. And this is one of them where now they're doing it at the tune of $3 billion to American taxpayers that could go to deal with other issues we have in this country that require our attention, like the folks in North Carolina still recovering from a hurricane that happened 2 months ago and still aren't getting any help from the federal government. Just my rant for that. And then we go on to this article by The Record around the potential split between Cyber Command and NSA. So Cyber Command and NSA, for those who don't know, essentially are run by one person. So for years, it was run by General Paul Nakasone, who ran both Cyber Command and NSA. President Trump, towards the end of his administration back in late 2020, wanted to split the role. Now, he can't just split the role based on his own accord. That's not how the system works. Congress and the Pentagon have to approve the split. He doesn't really need legislation, but he does need the Joint Chairman, Chief of Staff, and the SecDef to approve the move. So back towards the end of his first term, they tried to make the move, but that didn't happen. And so right now, Cyber Command and NSA, both headquartered in Fort Meade, but have installations all over the country, are run by General Timothy Hall. Now, they have a different requirements, right? So today, Cyber Command must be led by a 4-star military general, while NSA only needs 3 stars. Now, NSA is more powerful than Cyber Command, and there's a balance between the two that one person runs. Now, there's arguments being made that the job is too big for one person to run, and that the NSA should be separate and Cyber Command should be separate, and they should have 2 separate leaders, and they should go about their missions separately. That was kind of Trump's impression of it. Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's around politics here that has nothing to do with it. They want to reshape the authority between NSA and Cyber Command. I don't know how I feel about it personally. I've read this article a few times getting ready for the show this morning. I've looked at it. I don't know how I feel about it. I haven't formed an opinion on whether this is smart or not by President Trump and his administration. And this is all chatter. It hasn't been a statement that's been put out by the administration. It's stuff that the incoming administration is examining, as well as Congress. And Congress and lawmakers want to hear more about it. And luckily, because of the balance and of power here, you could see the role either split or not split based on what Congress says. Again, I think a role of leading Cyber Command and NSA is a lot for one person to do, but do you really? NSA is really, really powerful. It's got a lot of tools. Cyber Command uses a lot of those tools and utilizes them. So there's collaboration because there's one leader. That collaboration is far tighter. That when you have two separate leaders, you could have egos come into place. This is the government. Egos literally, is in government. So that could be an issue. That could potentially hurt their abilities to be able to help on the cyber front. So be very interesting to see what happens here, but something to pay attention to. All right, let's get into the tail end of the show here. JamesCesar.substack.com. You can find all the latest articles, everything else, including this Saturday. I'm putting out a whole brand new article, so go and subscribe. It's absolutely free to do so. Let's get into some patches here. Apple's security response team pushed out major updates to fix both iOS and macOS ecosystem warning of risks of data leakage, sandbox escape, and code execution attacks. iOS 18.2 and macOS Sequoia 15.2 are the patches, and they address flaws in the kernel, WebKit, Apple mobile file integrity, passwords, and image IO components. The updates also fixed the major security defects in the libexpat, an open source software utility integrated into Apple software. That bug tag, the CV 2024-45490, would allow a remote attacker to cause an unexpected app termination or arbitrary code execution. So you want to make sure you get that patched up ASAP. On Patch Tuesday, late in the evening, I didn't get it on our show yesterday. I missed this. Altigen and Splunk both announced patches for more than 24 vulnerabilities across their product portfolios, including multiple high-severity flaws and third-party components. Altigen released 10 high-severity fixes for vulnerabilities in the Bamboo data center and server, Bitbucket data center and server, and Confluence data center and servers. All were rated high and all affect third-party dependencies. And those are, it could be an Apache Commons Compress, AWS SDK for Java, Bouncy Castle Java cryptography APIs, Apache Tomcat, and Connect 2ID, Nimbus Josie JWT components. Splunk, for their end, published 7 security advisories that deal with 15 vulnerabilities in their products and third-party dependencies, including one high-severity bug in their secure gateway app, that's CVE 2024-53247 with an 8.8 CVSS score. It's described as a deserialization of untrusted data issue that would allow a low-privileged user to execute arbitrary code remotely. Splunk Enterprise versions 9.3.2, 9.2.4, and 9.1.7 were released with these patches, so you want to make sure you get those addressed ASAP. So all the spyware advocates out there that want to look at more spyware, here's one for you. In China, an undocumented Android spyware called Eagle Message Spy has been discovered and is believed to be used by law enforcement agencies in China to monitor Android mobile devices. According to a new report by Lookout, the spyware was developed by the Wuhan Chinasoft Token Information Technology Co. and has been operational since 2017. Lookout presents abundant evidence linking Eagle Message Spy to its developers and operators, including IP addresses tied to some of their C2 servers, domains, direct references in internal documentation, and public contracts. Lookout believes the law enforcement manually installs Eagle Message Spy spyware when they have physical access to unlocked devices. That's either during arrest or when they're confiscating them. But nonetheless, it does target messages and steals data from messaging apps like QQ, Telegram, and WhatsApp, screen recording and screenshots, call logs, contacts, and SMS. When you can arrest someone, put it on there physically, let them leave, and they've got access to their device and they're spying on everything. So all you spyware advocates, I want to hear your outrage when China does this to its citizens, like you do when every other country in the world does it as well. Law enforcement agencies for 15 countries have taken 27 DDoS for hire services offline, also known as booters or stressors. This was called Operation Power Off. It was an international initiative to combat cybercrime, specifically DDoS attacks. DDoS for hire services are platforms that utilize botnet, uncompromised devices to launch attacks on behalf of paying customers. So this latest crackdown wave was coordinated by Europol, where 27 booter websites were taken offline, including ZD Stressor, orbitalstress.net, and starkstressor.net. They now display seizure notices. The Dutch police also published an announcement about the action. Police say they arrested 4 men aged 22 to 26 who are being prosecuted. One is actually accused of conducting 4,169 DDoS attacks. Other carried in the hundreds. So all in all, more bad guys being taken offline. By the way, we're seeing a lot of that recently, right? A lot of that recently. Law enforcement's gotten really good at shutting them down. It doesn't stop cybercrime, but it does put a dent in it. It makes people rethink, reshape. They've got to build new infrastructure. We get a calm period to really build up our defenses, get a little bit better at what we do, make the cost of the attack for them more expensive, and make us more resilient. That's the name of the game here until something really major happens. We're never going to stop cybercrime per se, or these threat actors from doing what they do from a nation state level to cybercrime, right? Crime's always been around since humans have been around. So the idea is, how do you limit the impact and become more resilient, which is the goal of anything. So when you see stuff like this, you can celebrate it and understand there's a gap. And in that gap, we have to harden. That threat is not eliminated. It will come back. And when it does come back, you want to be far more prepared for it. That's it for our show this morning. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe, follow, share, and like. Sorry I went over, but I ranted over the defense, the NDAA. I apologize. Thank you for sticking through to the very end. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great week. And tomorrow, dropping an episode with my good friend Jennifer at 11 a.m. Go check it out as well. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And most importantly, y'all, have a great weekend and stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.